I'm back, book nerds. Welcome to the 800's. Looks like
Uh,
you got me, Alex, back from my 3-month hiatus. Summer was a wild ride. And and co-hosting with me today because apparently Adam doesn't want to hang out with me. No, just kidding. He's not feeling too well. We wish him a speedy recovery. But hosting with me today again is going to be Alan,
yo.
the man with the plan who makes us all happen.
Something like that. Something like that.
All right. So with that, why don't we quickly get into our plugs so we can get to the good, juicy part and talk about this book?
Yeah. All right. So, if you're joining us live, and then you probably I don't know. I don't do Adam's part. I don't do Adam's part. All right. So, basically, go check out our YouTube channel. If you can't check us out live or you miss a part of the show, you can join the rest of the conversation over there. Um, Also, you can check us out. Uh, uh, Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So, jeez, oh Pete. All right. So, uh, we like to listen to books as well as read books. Audible is a great way to listen to books. I think all of us use Audible, and you can use Audible too. You get 1 to 2 books. They keep changing it. 1 to 2 books free if you utilize our Audible link. Um, Go check out Audible today at dmstable.com/audible for all the goodies for what you're going to get with that link. It's a great application and you should check it out. If you joined us before the stream, go check out or if you joined us before the stream, you were hearing Fearless First by Incompetech. You can find more information about Incompetech at incompetech.filmmusic.io. Also, we've got a Patreon. Patreon.com/DMsTable. You can become a patron and vote on the books we read. Uh, Speaking of that, the current vote ends at 9:15 Eastern, so you got about 45 minutes to get your vote in. Become a patron and get your vote in. Also, I make Etsy products. I make things for Etsy or on Etsy that are nerd related stuff. So go check that out at dmstable.com/Etsy.
And it's good stuff too. Currently have a keychain. My keys are in the other room, so I won't be going to get them, but I'll try and have it next time to show it off.
Yeah,
They
I
are
keep
super
forgetting.
cool. They're super cool little doodads, and go ahead and check it out. Also, only $2 to be a patron, and that's what keeps us going, keeps the lights on, and uh, bringing you that wonderful content that we know you love so much.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
All right, now to the nitty gritty. This week on the 800s, we'll be discussing the first book of the eponymous Mistborn series, Mistborn: The Final Empire, by Brandon Sanderson. Perpetual ashfall blots out the sun and the mists swallow the night, harboring the dreaded mist wraiths. Still, humans persist, whether enslaved ska or privileged nobles, all in the final empire subject to the feared and eternal Lord Ruler. The hereditary magic of Alamancy allows the Lord Ruler to reign and the nobles to subjugate. Yet some half-breed Skas slip through the cracks, learning a single facet of Alamancy, or if they are lucky, they can master them all as a Mistborn.
I love that. That was great. That was awesome.
Woo! Kept the chops going. It's been a while. This one took me longer than usual.
So if you haven't joined us on the 800s before, we are a book club. We like to read our books. We do a couple books a month, and then we talk about them on Twitch here. It's not just going to be Alex and I. Hopefully, chat joins in as well, posing questions, thoughts, comments about the book. We, what we'll do is we'll propose a question, or chat will propose a question, and then we'll post it up and we'll kind of talk about it. Me and Alex will talk about it, and we'll read off some of your comments. and just kind of, uh, you know, work off each other. We'll enjoy the conversation as it comes.
Yeah, like Alan said, we love to have you contributing. So, oh, what's up, Adam? Looks like at least you felt. I'm glad you felt good enough to join us. Uh, See, that's how you contribute, people, in the comments. Just throw it out there. We'll try and put it up there. I am having a little bit of trouble getting my notes here so that I can actually put the questions up. But
That's okay.
uh,
If you can't
yeah,
get it,
my
I can take care of it.
all right, yeah, my text editor thing is just being wonky. So
Don't worry about it. I got you covered, man.
this dude. Um, anyways, usual disclaimer: this is a show that is geared towards adults. We do talk about adult-related themes, and uh, you know, some of the books we read are not safe for work, let alone kids. So bring kids around at your own discretion. Also, we try not to swear too much, but it happens. And, also, over here at DM's table, we're trying to create a culture of respect and dignity for people, where where everyone can feel safe to nerd out about whatever they love, and uh, just create a good, safe, supportive space for that. So, in short, be nice or fuck right off. Whew, I've been waiting to say that for 3 months. Feels good.
Oh.
I'm feeling good. All right. So, with that, I think we're ready to kick this off. Why don't we start with first impressions? I will say, if you can, Alan, start off on this one, since I believe you are the newer of the two of us to this series.
Yeah, sure. I can kick it off here. So my first impression, well, little background. I started with the Cosmere um, through Stormlight Archives. So that was my first exposure. So yeah, I got into this and immediately noticed like there was magic that kind of mixed together. So my first impression was like, oh my god, things connect, and the Cosmere is real. And so I was very excited about that. Am I? I'm a lot quieter, huh? Let's quiet Alex down then. Because I'm
Yeah,
maxed out.
not make. Yeah, let's not make you louder. Let's make Alex
Yeah, there we go. Let me know if that gets better.
All right, I'm talking. I'll continue to talk at my normal pace. Thank you for Outback Fan for the letting us know. This is how we get things right again. Uh, anyways, was that the end of your first impressions, or
Yeah, I mean,
were you just?
I was super excited about the suite. I was super excited about the whole like the Cosmere connecting together and this new like something that surprised me with Sando is like he's continually creating these magic systems that are linked together at some sort of like behind the scenes detail, but it is like vastly different in the usages. So that was my initial impressions. How about you?
Well, this was my second read through of this book. I'll try to remember some of my initial first impressions, though, when I read it for the first time, because specifically, this was actually my first ever Brandon Sanderson book that I read, was Mistborn, and I had no idea the Cosmere was a thing. So I was just like, this is a really cool fucking book. Uh, and honestly, Outback Venom, I totally get it. I'd heard a lot about Brandon Sanderson, mostly from Adam, um, because he too, I believe, tried to get me to read the first of the Stormlight Archives, and that was an intimidating book to take on. But honestly, if there is a book that is probably the least intimidating of Brandon Sanderson's that I've actually read, it is Mistborn. It draws you in from the very beginning. It's a much easier read. There is a lot going on, but one of the nice things about this book is while there was a lot going on and a lot to learn, I never felt out of my depth while reading this. Like I had to go back and figure things out. Like everything fit into place so well going forward. It just sucked me in right from the beginning. And I found it, while it doesn't have necessarily the scope of some of the other books that Brandon Sanderson has done, having read some more of them, this book uh, has a lot in it without feeling too big. So if you want a book to get somebody into Brandon Sanderson who's a little intimidated by some of his larger works, this is actually an excellent place to start. Still a lot, but it's a very good place to start because you get a feel for his writing style, you get a feel for kind of how he likes to build magic systems and how he is very good at fleshing out characters and um, building a world through story rather than just building a world through building blocks. So honestly, and that was my first impression. And going through this a second time, my first impression was more so the reaction to, dang, this was the easier read compared to the ones that I have read since the first reading of Mistborn. And there's a reason why, of Brandon Sanderson's book series, it has been my personal favorite.
Yeah, I totally could see that. That's something that didn't quite cross my mind until you called it out. This was a lot easier of a read, and it felt like you said, like less well wieldy, right?
Yeah,
So
it's a little more accessible, I think, than things like Stormlight Archives. Stormlight Archives is like the book nerd paradise of books. It doesn't really get much better than that period. But if you want to get somebody into like deep fantasy, especially modern deep fantasy, who is maybe a little intimidated by the ones that are like, it's a it's a book nerd's book made by a book nerd. um, and uh, Mistborn is a little more. It's still very much Brandon Sanderson, but has a bit easier of an entry because, yeah, Stormlight Archives is diving into the deep end, and Mistborn kind of, it's a lot. It's like a lazy. I would say, oh, no, Lazy River is not giving it enough credit, but it's a lot easier to like wade into it
yeah.
and then just love it once you're in it.
What's your thoughts on like the cast list size?
Um, Honestly, I thought Sanderson did a good job of keeping it large enough to be believable that like there was this whole world he was building, but without an overwhelming number of characters, and he let characters come in and out of the story as needed, and always had a way of doing that without feeling like, who the fuck is this person
Yeah.
that I forgot about from forever ago. uh, Everybody had a place in the story without taking away from the main characters.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree.
So I like the balance.
Yeah, I liked how small the cast list was. Of the Brando Sando books, this is kind of a smaller cast book.
It is.
So you've got your heist crew. So you got like what is it, a 5-6 member crew, and then you've
I'm,
got secondary and well more like tertiary characters because the heist crew is really secondary characters.
mhm.
Um, you got your tertiary characters, and that's pretty much it. Everything else feels like the backdrop really is like the caste system, right? Like the social order of things. Um, I can't for the life of me think of the lords. What do the lords have a name, or are they just not ska? They're just humans.
They're just nobles,
They're just nobles. Okay.
essentially. Yeah. Yeah. There's just the nobles and the ska. Like it. I mean, it plays out essentially like your typical feudal lordship like type of thing, where it's the king or lord ruler, nobles that kind of manage this, and there's various levels of nobles, like,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's the church, and then there's the ska, which are essentially the peasant folk,
Mm-hmm.
and uh,
Yeah, I think
so
I
it's
think
a good setup.
Skittles is calling out. Uh, he's saying that it was kind of a large cast for him for the first read. I could see that. I mean, to each their own, right? The um, uh, some people's cast list is going to be uh, harder to hold than others, and that's fine. But yes, I do like what Skittles was saying about a very clear main character. Um, that's kind of nice. It's nice to have that like that definite.
Hmm. Yeah, and one of the other nice things about like the cast list being as it is having that, specifically referring to having that very clear cut main characters, and everybody else has a role that you don't forget the names. It's very easy in fantasy to like try to well, it's a little worse than in sci-fi, but in fantasy and sci-fi it's really bad about having names that are hard to pronounce, which makes certain characters hard to remember who it is. Especially, I get that you're trying to create kind of like a version of English that is just off enough that you are creating something that feels like it fits within a world, like naming schemas, uh, so that certain names feel like they could be inherited from one to another or whatever. This one kind of does that, but it does it in a way that like none of the names feel too complicated and hard to remember, which is
Yeah.
nice. So for the offshoot characters, it's harder to forget them because I don't have to spend time trying to memorize some name that has three K's, two Y's,
Mm-hmm.
and an apostrophe that fits somewhere in there for no reason.
Yeah.
and
Well, and
you
and
know,
also to add to that, there's not very similar sounding or reading names either, right? So like you don't have like Alistair and Hallister. You know what I mean? You
yeah,
don't have they're all the names are distinct,
yeah,
which is
yeah, and
nice.
that was a good way of putting it. Like I tried to, that's what I was going for as part of what I was saying, but I think I missed the mark on it. But yeah, exactly that is there wasn't some like there weren't 10 characters with like the slightest
Mhm.
variation in their names,
Mhm.
which can happen. And I get it. That's kind of the naming schema that I was going off of,
Mhm.
is this idea that, you
I'm
know, certain families have certain names that get passed down. So you have like three people in a family who have essentially the same name with just the slightest variation, and it gets tough, especially when you're trying to remember a whole world.
yeah. Yeah, I'm my extracurricular book right now is the Silmarillion, and that is like
Yep.
notorious
Oh
for it.
yeah,
It's
absolutely.
it's insane.
That is the epitome of that example right
Right,
there.
right. So yeah, so I mean, this would be like I think the other extreme. Like these names are unique to the world. They feel crafted
Mhm.
by like the system of magic that's there plus the culture, but it's also each name is unique enough that it's not terribly hard to get them confused. If anything, I would think that somebody might forget what a character's name is instead of get it confused with somebody else, which is nice. So,
Yeah. So I would like to kind of go off of what you said
hmm
about these names kind of fitting the world, and I think part of what lends itself to that is the fact that this magic system is based off of stuff that I think is pretty familiar to people who are, or at least I would say like the modern Western world, and that is alchemy. It's clearly
hmm
based off of like alchemical principles
yeah,
and metals and elements, things that feel very industrial West type of elements, and the names suit that, which allows them to be
hmm
distinct while fitting in, and stuff that at least for most most for now Americans, uh, easier for us to like intake. And I'm fully aware that like if somebody were coming from another culture, it might not be as easy as it is for us, but it seems to fit that way. But anyways, uh, my question that I am posing though is well, just in general, what did you think of how the magic system was developed throughout this book? Or more simply, what did you think of the magic system?
I one second.
Yeah, I'll give you a second there. I realize
Yeah.
you're the one typing
All
these
right.
in because
So
like I can't get my text editor to
yeah,
work.
yeah. No, it's cool. What did I think of the magic system? The magic system. There we go. Uh, I thought it was very unique. I don't think I've run across a magic system like this where you consume metals and those metals do different things. I thought it was really cool to have each metal do something unique and that some people can't burn metals the same as others and that there's a class that can do all of them. So, yeah.
Yeah. Um, what I really liked is, beyond what you just said, because that it is very clear cut what things do
Hmm.
and like how it's applied. But what I really loved about this magic system is it was very easy to demonstrate exactly what was happening
Yeah.
as a part of the story. You
Hmm.
don't, I mean, there is something of a training arc type of thing to this
Hmm.
where at various moments we get experts in any given aspect of this uh, magic system, but most of what you're learning, especially about the nuance of it, is through its creative use,
Yeah.
and all of it seems to fit together. And then like the science, well,
The
science, but like
pseudoscience. It's
the pseudo,
pseudoscience.
but like the nerd in me that love the like the geek in me that loves to learn about stuff fitting and
Hmm.
how these magic systems work is it was kind of beautiful how through story the distinctions between what each metal could do and couldn't do was so easily and readily uh demonstrated,
Oh, sure, sure.
you know uh especially since like we don't know that it's allomancy to begin with, right?
Right.
It's just I know that like I can kind of feel a metal, and after I can kind of feel something happening, I'm able to exert this force on somebody else, and it's just like cool. That's kind of just like it. Maybe this is just a special thing for the one person or whatever, and no, this is the beginning of something bigger. And like I felt like, despite the fact that it wasn't introduced, it kind of made sense as a bit of magic that happened kind of on its own. And then when it fit into the system, I was like, well, damn, that's awesome. Because now, like, I felt like I had some knowledge of the system before I even knew what it was,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of, and nothing felt out of place. Everything fits together. And I especially love that things that are, and this is where kind of the science nerd comes out in me, is like the effects of an alloy
Hmm.
have a kind of combine, like what you would get if you combined the two elements that make the alloy.
Right.
And the fact that this is noticeable to the characters but seemed to fit, and if you work your way backwards, it was doing that the whole time,
Yeah.
and you don't learn this aspect until way towards the end.
Yep.
Or like not way towards the end, but like pretty good chunk into the book. It was really cool to see all those like pieces kind of line up, and you're just like
Yeah.
bullseye. Like it hits really well,
Yeah.
honestly.
Well, and I think that's what Skittles was getting at too,
Oh,
was
absolutely.
the idea of the alloy pairings, and that was something that like I also like gravitated towards and latched onto, and so when I think it was gold came up. And it didn't do anything, and then I forget what the other one that doesn't do anything, also or whatever. Um, I was like, it's the one where you can see someone else's.
Oh,
Was that the
tin.
11th?
Or it's tin or bronze. Are you talking about like the Seekers, or are you talking
No,
about?
no, no. I'm talking about the medals. So I think it's the
Oh,
11th
are you
medal,
talking about? Oh,
which
the
is
11th
probably
medal, which is
Electrum.
the one. No, the 11th medal is a combination of gold and why am I blanking? It starts with an A. It's the main one that lets you see the
Adium.
future. Adium, yeah, adium. Gold and it's an alloy of gold and adium, and
Yeah,
basically gold allows uh, what Vin, the main character,
yeah,
recognizes that she recognizes what gold does, and gold is kind of um, allows you to essentially move yourself a bit into the past before you were hurt. Like that's
sure.
kind of the and
You can see a potential.
well that's well well that's what adium does. Adium sees the potential.
No, no,
Gold.
no. The potential of going back, but the
Oh, that's what
yeah,
you mean.
yeah, because
Oh,
essentially it doesn't
Yeah,
let you.
Maladium. That's the alloy. Thank you,
Oh,
skills.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
it shows like it's the butterfly effect, but backwards.
yeah, and uh, well, what I was saying though is like because adium shows you the future
Yeah,
and gold ostensibly like takes you a bit into the past before injuries. Putting those together, it makes sense that it makes sense that it would show you the past rather than showing you the future, and that's like the exact example I was thinking about that in bronze between
yeah.
tin and copper,
Does it?
and it takes
Go ahead. Sorry, sorry.
and I like the fact that these alloys take elements from their elemental origins, and it just fits, and it explains why metals work of any kind. It doesn't have to be elements, it can be alloys,
Mm-hmm.
and also fits the really cool name of allomancy. But
Yeah. I I don't know. I loved thinking about the pseudoscience and like um uh I think they had gold paired wrong, right? They had gold paired up with another thing, and I can't. Man, I am blanking now. But they didn't quite understand what gold was because it was so weird, and the fact that it's not paired properly, and she figures out that it's not paired properly like right near the end. That was something that I had a
yeah,
hunch like really early on.
well, yeah, they had it paired improperly because they it was kind of on this level of most of the metals that they talk about are your physical and mentals.
Mhm.
That's the prime eight that most people use,
Mhm.
and uh they really only use metals that are essentially in like this internal space.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's
And
external
like and
versus internal, right? That's
Well, yeah,
the
but they didn't really like at least not in this version in this book.
sure.
They really don't use any of like the external ones that come from like the enhancement or temporal
Sure.
realms.
Yeah.
Uh I
Don't.
that stuff yeah, I'm not going to get too
Yeah.
into that
Yeah.
because that brings into like other stuff, but like I think we can say the temporal bit because we understand that gold kind of like brings out a past self,
Yeah.
and you know and that's a past self of yourself, and adium is the projection of the future of somebody else, and putting those together is the projection of the past of somebody else. And I don't know, I just real and adium is like I think gold got paired with aluminum before, didn't it?
I couldn't tell you. I remember that it was paired wrong, but I couldn't tell you how. But
uh
it's fine. It's fine. So I had a question for you. What did you think of the character Vin?
Alrighty. Oh, and by the way, I did get my text stuff going, so I can do future questions now. So
Good.
you get this one, but I'll go into my uh, thoughts on Vin. Honestly, this is another reason why this is my one of my favorites of Brandon Sanderson's books. Is she's one of my favorite characters. Uh, I like the fact that she is set up to be a character who has a lot of flaws off the bat that come from a life that makes sense, like where the trauma is. That
Hmm.
it makes sense that she has learned what she has to that point. Like nothing feels unearned with her, and it she is a great character for character growth. Like she's set up to be like that. I think I think it's like her and Kaladin end up being like two of my favorites in the entire Cosmere, you know.
Okay.
so, uh, but her in particular, I think she's a bit more sympathetic in some ways, because she comes at the world, I think, from a stance that is a little closer to where the reader is within the world, which is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because she's discovering a lot of stuff as we're discovering it, and none of it feels forced, none of it feels like unearned or
Yeah.
anything.
She's
And
like the
it,
hidden Watson.
yeah,
Yeah.
kind of, yeah, a little bit without being a Watson, which is
Right,
nice,
right.
you know.
He
Uh,
he was able to give us glimpses into the world, or like teach us the world through the character, not through telling us.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like it felt very fluid to move through the world with her.
Yeah.
It was very easy, like how many times can you say like it felt very easy to connect with a main character that is like a 16-year-old girl when you're a 30-year-old man. Like I
Yeah.
mean, like
Yeah.
uh and there are a few little surprises with her. She's witty without being overly so, like, where again jokes feel forced. Like that was another thing with this read through, and like I kind of let myself sink into her a little bit more, and like just kind of tried to feel what she felt as she's going through this stuff, and like actually laughed a bit more, like especially between her and, oh god, what the hell is that venture kid's name? Starts with an E.
Oh,
uh
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Eladin.
Yeah, something
uh
like that. Yeah.
uh
Lord Venture's son, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the heir to the venture throne. You should know he's such a main freaking
Yeah,
character.
Elend, Elend, Elend,
Elend. Oh, Elend. Okay, yeah.
Elend.
So like her banter with Elend
Yeah.
is funny, but it seems like the kind of thing like a 16-year-old would say. Whereas, like, there's been times that I've read these things that 16-year-olds say, I'm like, I don't care what life you lived. No 16-year-old says that shit. you know, like, no 16-year-old, like, no, we've read enough YA stuff on here that I've had that feeling before.
Yeah.
And I don't
Oh
think
yeah.
I really had that in this. She had some clever stuff that makes sense because she's sat around adults her entire life
Hmm.
learning how this shit goes down. But in this case, and she broke it on an occasion, but she also got huffy. They avoided that nasty habit of like misunderstanding Allie all
Yeah.
over the fucking place,
Yeah.
which I honestly have come to loathe on some level.
Right? Right? It is my most hated trope.
And there is some tropey bits to it, like Skittle. You brought up like exactly what my next little bit was going to be about, is that she is the student trope character that fleshes out the world, but it wasn't treated like a trope because
Hmm.
she was such a real character within it, and the stakes made sense.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who throw that trope out there, like student must learn, and I think what was the term I used, like the training arc type
Yeah.
of thing. I liked that the training arc for her was split into little bits rather than all at once. Like, and she's just
Hmm.
going to come out the other side this perfect person. No, she goes into situations like with partial knowledge because
Yeah.
that's what the situation called for, and that's kind of how life fucking works.
Yeah.
you
There was
know?
like a pseudo montage, like when Kelsier was like hey, you're a Mistborn, and this is how things kind of work. These are the general metal purposes. And then after that, she was like, fly by the seat of her pants, trying with like unlimited magic, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's that, and like I think the only other scene that compares to that is like the minor training learning montage where she gets a haircut and apparently learns like the general politics of the city she's going to.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Like for the most part, it's exactly what you said. So I've rambled on a lot
Oh,
about her, and I could go on for a lot longer, but I'm gonna rather than latching onto what I am talking about. Is there anything specifically you thought about her?
um, I do like I link up with that whole like I was I was really happy that it was easy to like attach myself to this character, right? Um,
Mhm.
because she had went through traumas that I've never went through.
Mhm.
And so I was really worried when the character was introduced, and we find out her traumas fairly early,
Mhm.
um, that I wasn't going to be able to like relate to this character. But the whole like fish out of water style thing, and like just learning as you're discovering this new world, that was, I mean, it was just really well written. I was glad to be able to like fit into this character, and I felt like her and Kelsier were like a really good foil to each other, because they both had very traumatic backgrounds, and they both have this like common struggle, but they are attacking the problem in different ways, and pushing each other to grow, right? And
Mhm.
and I thought that was a really awesome like character foil without having the what is it called, conflict, without having conflict.
And I absolutely agree with that. She is kind of plopped in front of us with a bunch of experiences that we don't get to experience, but
Yeah.
she does a good job of reflecting what it would have been like to have been through something like that. Like to have seen some shit.
Right.
And like they're very realistic portrayals of that. Like I love the subtle moments that come up, like her first time at the ball, the
Hmm.
first time that she talks to somebody that says something duplicitous that like at all, and her brother's voices in her head saying you can trust nobody. And like just little flashes of that, like
Yeah.
that's fucking how PTSD works. Like it can just be somebody like saying something that may be innocuous to them. It
Hmm.
probably isn't in a court, but still, or like a court in the sense of like
Right.
uh, nobles, but you know it makes sense that that would pop up, and I like those little subtle nods to these things and how she learns and she deals with it differently throughout the series, which
Yeah.
is another part of her growth, which is fun to follow.
Oh, you mean throughout
uh
the books?
yeah,
Because she did a great
throughout
job growing through
this
this
book.
book. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm saying through this
Oh, okay.
book
Okay.
alone, just like watching her character development of it was paralyzing for her the first time
Hmm.
to being something that she's able to use without internalizing by the end,
Hmm.
essentially. And she's even able to shake it off in some parts and learn something that like humanizes her more, and that's the bit of trust. But I want to get into what Skittles said about her being a great character, showing the creativity involved in allomancy. Another awesome reason is like she is the genius, but it never goes too far, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's that creative knowledge because she hasn't had the same experiences as
Mm-hmm.
other people. She hasn't had traditional allomantic experiences and didn't
Mm-hmm.
understand kind of her background, so that she was able to kind of discover on her own. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it provides her a unique perspective on allomancy because she like we a lot of us get like bound by rules of how we learn stuff.
Right, right.
And
Perceived limitations.
Yeah, and she doesn't have some of those, or she has just different ways of interacting with it from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
To that end, though, and I will make this my next question.
Okay.
What was your favorite bit of? What was your favorite creative use of Allomancy?
Ooh, man, creative use. I don't know. So for me, I can't think of one that she did, but
Doesn't
like,
have to be her. It could
oh,
be
okay,
anyone.
just in general.
Yeah. What
Uh,
was your favorite use of like
I
in the book?
I love the flying. The flying was clever. Like the railroad,
Yeah.
having the ingot railroad, that was clever. I really liked that. Um, I liked I liked the first time Kelsier assaulted Venture Keep,
Hmm.
and like just the action scene that kind of happened there. I was still like really weird about like how does push and pull work, like the physics around it, you know. So like when he was pulling people off the ledges and stuff like that. But I enjoyed that highway the most. How about you?
That was actually one of like my top three as well. That little like that does come up, but like the one I was specifically thinking
Hmm.
of is a bit more. I don't know if subtle's the right word, but I liked, and this is coming from our discussion of how Vin interacts with Allomancy and
Yeah.
her unique perspective on it, is her the way she feels the forces that are at work when Allomancy is used, allowing her to use her copper, like to feel the change in her copper cloud, and allowing her to realize that the Inquisitors are able to see through the copper clouds. I love that idea that she's just like, there's something external acting on my
Hmm.
external cloud, and like feeling those forces, and like it's everybody else is just like, well, this counteracts this, and that's how it
Right.
fucking works. And she's just like, no, these are forces, and I can feel them moving and interacting with each other. They're fluid. They, uh, it was really cool. It was really cool, and
And she was
it,
sensitive enough to pick up on the Lord
yeah,
Ruler's effect, which
yeah.
was great. It really showed that like that difference in understanding. She was able to feel something different.
Well, yeah, and it was really cool how like it was a subtle setup
Hmm.
right there for something bigger later, so it
Hmm.
doesn't feel unearned that she's going up against somebody who's ruled for 1,000 years and
Hmm.
has an entire school of metal arts available to him that she doesn't, and has all these resources. It makes sense that she just subverts it, because not because she has more resources, but she uses it creatively.
Yeah,
The other
she's
one,
figured it out.
yeah, so like to well,
Yeah.
actually, one of my other favorites, Skittle brought up the ability to push and pull crowds, to manipulate how a crowd reacts, and not just like
Yeah.
outright, just like, we're going to riot these people and we're going to soothe, or we're going to completely soothe this crowd, or we're going to completely riot. It was subtle, one
Yeah.
person here, one person there, to
And
make
there's
it,
like a maestro
yeah,
behind the wall, who's like
it makes it
send
feel
in the
more
red
organic.
girl. Yeah.
Like that is like straight, that is some
That was dope.
that is like subterfuge at its
Yeah.
best, like, and it was really cool the way that was used, and it makes it feel more realistic than,
Yeah.
yeah, if you make a crowd go from booing and all of a sudden cheering for no fucking reason, yeah, that's gonna throw some flags. But if
Yeah.
you make a crowd a little boo and a little yay, and then it kind of subtly starts to shift in one direction or the other, that makes more sense for how people work, and just
Yeah.
being able to see the subtlety in it is really cool.
Yeah.
And
I really liked Breeze in general, right? Like
yeah.
his powers are like super scary in my opinion. Like
Oh yeah.
I I don't know, like if I knew there was powers like that, I don't know how I could handle social interactions because I couldn't trust someone isn't manipulating my emotions. I think who was it? Copper? No, 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 not Copper. It was the goon. What was the thug's name? Um,
Oh, I him.
Ham. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I loved Ham for his like intellectual what's it called? His philosophical bouts of like
yeah,
it can't is this actually right? Can you actually
yeah.
trust when a
Hey,
soother's around?
perfect segue into philosophical debate, though. Here, Skittle has a question for us: Is the survivor of Hathsin, Kelsier, crime lord and revolution leader, was he good or was he evil?
Ooh.
I just put the question up, so we're good on that.
I do you want to take a stab at it or shall I?
I'll take a stab.
Okay, go for it.
I don't think he was either.
Ooh, neutral you
Um,
think?
not necessarily neutral, but I don't think he was good or evil. He was acting on an impulse that was contrary to the world order. I don't think
Sure.
he was. I think he was just. I mean, this is a personal philosophical thing, but like he was acting. I think he probably thought he was good,
Mhm.
but best laid intentions. I mean, look. I mean, we only need look at the Lord Ruler himself, you know,
Yeah.
to see like I think that's part of what I liked about this book is like even the most evil like the guy who was set up to be the most evil motherfucker
Mhm.
was doing something that was supposedly saving the world.
Yeah, yeah, you
And
don't know what
and
you've
this guy
done.
and Kelsier, I think, had just become. I don't think he was good or evil outright. I think he just was a man on a mission. He
That's
had
fair.
made a decision that my life is going to be devoted to this end and this end alone, regardless of the cost.
Yep.
And like it puts him in a weird position of yes, it benefits some people who have been oppressed to no end, but
But
it
it's
ignores a lot of the humanity of the world around him. And he, I don't think he ever dips it into being outright evil because it is less about making other people suffer and more about, again, it just becomes the goal. I
yeah.
don't think he necessarily cares what it is. In fact, like the whole point is his end game was to sacrifice himself and become a martyr.
Yeah.
And like he basically was an agent of chaos.
Yep.
Like he wanted to disrupt the world order, and yeah, he leans a lot into the I hope this means that the sky will no longer be oppressed, but like some things that he does throughout this book kind of make me think that like that was just the easiest way to disrupt stuff. Stir some shit with the nobles who are already dramatic enough, and
Mhm.
then take the oppression of an oppressed people and make it so apparent that this can go on no longer, and then just die and let the world do whatever the fuck. Um, like because that was his end game, especially I don't see him as necessarily good or evil. He was just mission oriented.
Yeah. Skittles votes evil. Because he was very much ends justify the means kind of guy. Um, he would stop at nothing to gain his own personal goals. I would agree to a point. I'm going to go a little bit in a different direction. I'm going to say that I think that he was chaotic neutral, using D&D kind of style,
I was
as
trying
one
not to do
does,
that, but
as one does. I'm gonna do it. I mean, that's a very
no,
common
go for it.
that's
No,
a
go for it.
yeah, that's a very common what do you call it? Alignment plot. I think chaotic neutral is his solid character, right? So he's looking for freedom from the current the current system, chaos, right?
Mhm.
He is an agent of chaos. I think he had or has a a set of rules that he won't break unless he needs to.
Mhm.
And I don't think his outcome that he was shooting for was altruistic.
No.
I think it was self-serving, and so I think that he has a moral boundary which keeps him in the good area, but he is willing to compromise to see the ends, or get to the means, right? And
Hmm.
that is his evil side. I think he's a solid chaotic neutral.
Yeah, and I think ultimately my description winds up being chaotic
Yeah.
neutral. And like, I definitely see the evil because there is very much an ends justify the means aspect to him,
Mhm.
particularly when it involves the nobles. But I have
Mhm.
a very specific counter to that, and that was his decision to spare Ellen because
Only at the
it was
behest
somewhat, yes,
of
but it
Vin.
was because he cared about somebody else and they cared about this other person,
Mhm.
and that is doing something not for himself. And
Mhm.
that one act does not necessarily make him good either.
Mhm.
Um,
Well,
you
that's
know, I but like it does show the good aspects of him, and that there was, like you said, there is a line that he drew for himself, and that line was, I'm not going to fuck over the people that I directly care about, which
right.
by the end of this book is like three people.
Yeah, it gets really really short. What
You know.
So I want to ask you a question. Um what was the craziest twist in this book for you?
um I mean, I have a fun twist that wasn't that crazy, that the one that I probably liked the most.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm using invocative language. Go for it.
uh well, oh, God dang, I am not remembering the names for the light. Oh,
Describe.
When Marsh comes back to life,
Yeah.
and he's a good inquisitor.
The
Like
fake
that was
the
just like,
fake death.
I was just like, he's not actually dead. There's no way. That it's like, this is like, until that, it's very much that, like, I went into it with that mentality. It was just like, unless there's 100% confirmation that this is him, like,
Yeah.
he's not dead.
Yeah.
Like, that's not how this works.
But then there was confirmation.
Yeah, there.
Confirmation.
No, no, but
you know?
like you didn't see his. That's like saying, like, oh, somebody put somebody's ring on a dead body that they
Yeah.
decapitated and threw in the river, and it's like, oh, this bloated corpse with that person's ring on must be that person,
Yeah.
without verifying fingerprints, dental, or like facial recognition of any kind. And that's kind of what this felt like. I was just like, yeah, I don't think he's actually dead because this feels like a setup. Um,
I felt he was dead, but hoped he wasn't. Like,
well,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? Like I when it happened, I could see him being the wise man that comes back, right? If we're referencing the hero's journey. But like I was I was super sad because like it wasn't like the brutality was outside of the realm of possibility. The brutality was already established early
Mhm.
on frequently. And
Oh
so
yeah.
like when it happened I was like fuck.
Yeah, but the other thing is, it's alluded to throughout, but like the Inquisitors value these, the Seekers on such a level. I was
Yeah.
just like, why would you burn that resource if you like? And they're also shown to be super manipulative. They have a bunch of soothers and stuff, and like brainwashing does not seem out of the realm of possibility. But like, I don't know. I just kind of had a feeling that he
Sure.
wasn't. I was just like, if he is dead, then like, I guess it makes sense. That'll be a little disappointing. But I'm like, I have to believe, like, I didn't think he'd come back as a good one, as a good
Oh,
Inquisitor.
yeah.
That was a bit surprising to me. I was just like, oh, he's back and he's still of his right mind.
And he
Fuck.
killed everyone.
I was just like, I expected him, if he came back, to be like, brainwashed monster that was going to kill everybody.
Mhm.
Um, like, let's send, like, he was going to
Yeah,
be like,
with
dude
that
got sent in
redemptive
with the,
motive, like at the end, like he comes back and he like kills everybody, and then he's about to kill Vin, and then he's like, "Wait, I remember you. Run." No, yeah, It was
No,
good. It was a good
I was
twist.
expecting him to come back as more of like we're gonna throw this dude at you as psychological warfare. Like
Right, right, right.
make you fight your friend. Blah,
Yeah,
blah,
and he
blah. Like
doesn't
I thought
remember you. That's what I was getting at. Yeah.
yeah, so I was thinking that's what it was gonna be and not not what it actually
Hmm.
was. But I think the thing that actually surprised me, I mean, other than that aspect of that one is honestly, I was kind of my biggest twist is that the Lord Ruler actually died in the first book.
Yes.
That was my biggest one. I was like, wait, what? I thought this was going to be kind of like she got away with like learning a secret, and the next book was going to be
Oh,
taking
I
on,
see what you're saying. Yeah.
less of a like we're going to end this and no, there was a greater evil. I expected there to be like some kind of greater
Hmm.
evil, and I also wasn't and this is part of the unexpectedness of it is I wasn't expecting the Lord Ruler to be defending against said other evil.
Yeah.
uh, I mean, I've read the other books, so I know what this ultimately becomes, and I'm trying to make sure that I
Yep.
remember where the cutoff point is for some of this. But like, it kind of made it when looking back, especially the second read through, I
Hmm.
noticed that they had been planting seeds that this guy wasn't the big bad from the beginning. And it starts with Ellen talking about how this guy fucks up a lot.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And I'm almost like, you've lived for 1,000 years and you're fucking up this much.
Yeah.
Like, you clearly are not somebody who came into power through your smarts. Like, you kind of like this is somebody who like happened to gain a huge amount of power and it was probably in over their heads with whatever the fuck. And that's not the type of person who necessarily is the well, I mean, for this story, he's the BBEG, but like
Yeah.
in the grand, to use their term, Cosmere of things, he is not.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes more sense the second read through because I was able to catch those little bits of like, oh, like a smart person would have done things this way, but he did things this way because it is more brutal. I'm
Right.
like, and that's it. Um, and I think the other thing that got me is this idea that he fucking failed to end his own empire at one point. And I was just like, and it, and stuff like that. Also, I remember the first time around reading this, and when Vin defeats him, I was just like, that was probably the most unbelievable part of the entire book is that she took on this dude with all these extra resources and
Sure.
like I was just like I don't get it. If like scaling wise it doesn't make sense. Like yeah, she's smart, creative, but like there's something missing there. And then this time I think that was the missing piece for me is understanding that the dude was a bit of a buffoon in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
And uh it makes sense that like he has just been able to brute force his way through shit.
Yep.
Like
Through
very
sheer power.
you know what it reminds me of is fucking Homelander.
Homeland. Okay. Okay.
Is like is this dude who has never been he has had this power maybe like the Lord Ruler maybe not his entire life but
Sure.
for like 1,000 years and nothing has been able to challenge him in any significant way. So why the fuck would you do anything why the fuck would you have to think creatively when you can just brute force your way through a bunch of shit?
Right.
Yeah, he set up a sustainable empire. Great. Um, he set up an empire that lasted 1,000 years and was, despite being brutal, relatively peaceful. But like that's kind of, you know, that's kind of like his deal is just like I brute force my way into like this is peace, but
Right.
he did it at the cost of like making a bunch of people suffer. And if his
Hmm.
like goal was altruistic to create an empire without war,
Bless you.
then subjugating most of the population is maybe not the best way to do it. But
Yeah.
like,
Well,
so like
I
it,
think
it
like
just makes more sense to me now. That's all.
yeah, yeah. I think that was kind of the twist for me. My favorite twist was like that he wasn't the champion of the ages. Um, like turned bad. You know what I mean? Like
Well, he
the
wasn't
fact
the
that
hero of legend or
or
whatever it
yeah, yeah,
was.
whatever it was called. But yeah, like the fact that he wasn't that person was like, oh my god, this guy intercepted destiny and then fucked it up really bad, like really
Yeah,
bad.
hero of ages.
Yeah,
That's what it was.
yeah. So like that was a great twist for me. Like I was just like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. That's when everything started falling into place for me.
Yeah,
Like where he was making all these massive mistakes, and you know what I mean. And then the fact that like he gained peace through violence and peace through violence. You
yeah,
know, so like that was great. And then it just turns out to be the fucking Sherpa, and I was like, oh my god, this yeah. So that was my favorite.
yeah. I really like that too. There's a lot of that going on in this book where I think it sets you up to subvert certain expectations,
Hmm.
and I think maybe that's why I clocked that Marsh maybe wasn't dead, is because I was just like, no, there's a lot of like, this isn't as it seems. Like, it
Yeah.
starts from the very beginning with the myths themselves.
Yep. Yep.
Is that they are this thing to be feared. They are this thing that you
Hmm.
don't touch, and yet it is the source of power
Yep.
for this world.
I think Vin is so. Skittles asks, so who do you think will be the real hero of ages? I think it's Vin. I think Vin is the new hero of ages.
I mean,
That's my prediction.
it makes the most narrative sense at this point. I'll say. I don't want to get too much into
Very,
it because again, I've read
very
the books.
political.
Well,
Uh,
I'm trying to do it without getting into what I
yeah,
know from other books.
that's fair.
So,
That's fair.
like, but
Yeah.
it makes sense because she's the one that, like,
Well, she's the
yeah,
savant, right?
she she's the one who brought balance to the force.
Yeah.
Well,
That's yeah. That's it.
like she, but the question is though, and I'll pose this to you because you haven't read more, is do you think she stays that way, or was she the one to clear the way for the real hero of ages?
I don't know. I I think she's the
But
hero of
on
ages.
Okay, all
I
right.
don't
So
know. I
all right, read
that's
the books and you'll find out. Trust me.
yeah.
Like the other books, they read a little different because you're not sinking into a new world,
Sure.
but there are enough new elements where you get some of that.
Because
Liter-
it's
except
metal
most of them. Well, yeah, most of them
or
are
alloys.
alloys.
Yeah.
Most of the remaining ones are alloys because the only two like outside of the only two that we really, or I guess three that we see outside of like the mental and physical are aluminum and gold, and then the
Sure.
rest in those other areas are alloys, and then there's adium, which we don't know what the fuck it is because it's unique to this world, and
Hmm.
uh, then the one, uh, oh crap, I think I'm,
I don't know what you're talking about.
never
Stop
mind,
there.
that's book two.
Stop there. But
Well, I
yeah,
mean, like adium along
we
with
knew
like
about
because
adium. So
everything comes in pairs, right? Well,
right.
adium has its own pair as well. So
Yeah. Well, and he's alluded to a lot, and then if you've read Stormlight Archives, most of this stuff, if not all of this stuff, links up to bonds. So
yeah,
like right? So like, is it bonds? Is it called bonds? I can't remember now. But yeah, like it all links up, and there's a little bit of everything, right? Like
hmm
how the wind runners used to move is exactly how they move with iron and steel, right?
Yeah.
So
And well, like it gets your first my first peek, and I didn't know that this was my first peek at like the Cosmere was them calling the Lord Ruler the sliver of what was it? The sliver of eternity, or what is it?
what? The
Hold
Well of
on.
Eternity. You're
No, no,
talking
no.
about the
That
next book?
no, the next book is the Well of Ascension,
Oh yeah, yeah.
but he briefly he has another name where he's called the Sliver of Infinity. I think like
Gotcha.
once in the book, and he's called that by somebody that we later find out is a world hopper.
Oh, Hoyd.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he's called that by
Yeah.
I say later, like he calls him the Sliver of Infinity. Hoyd is known to be a world hopper
Yeah.
later after having said that. But like I will say I agree with Skittle. Like the second book of this one for a sequel, I
Mhm.
don't know too many. I can't even honestly think of any off the top of my head that are better outside of like maybe the Two Towers.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, like for a sequel book. And that's one of the things that Brandon Sanderson I think shows a masterclass in, that I think um Tolkien is one of the few that I have read books that do the same thing, is having a very, very satisfying arc through an entire book,
Mhm.
building a world and setting pieces throughout that there is something bigger that is happening later down the road that is what is actually meant to be addressed. He
Yeah.
does it in a different way because we know from the very beginning that like the end game is Tolkien does it in a different way because we know from the beginning the end game is Sauron.
Right.
But at the end, but like building in these arcs within an overarching plan, there are not too many second books that feel like more than filler between the beginning and end.
That's fair. I
And
can
the Two
that's why the
Towers
second
and the Well
movie's
of Ascension,
always shit.
yeah, usually, but this is something that the Two Towers and the Well of Ascension do extremely well,
Mhm.
is they act as more than just filler in the middle. They build the world more.
Mhm.
They have action of their own that makes them compelling, and it's not just to bridge the gap. It is a self-contained story that is still a part of something bigger, and it
Yeah.
is feels worth reading, and it's not just a like this gets me from A to C by stopping at B.
Yeah.
It's like this is it's the difference between reading the billboard on the highway and stopping at the actual, tour tourist trap or whatever the
Right.
fuck in the middle. And it, yeah. So for those of you who haven't read it, not to get too much into that one because we didn't read that book, but like definitely, definitely worth it if you love uh the first book in the Mistborn series. The second one is a great read,
I think
and
that's
you know,
something that like you said, like Sanderson is a very capable author, and I think what lends to that capability is keeping each book interesting. And he's a big series writer, right? That's he just pumps out these series, and he's got this grand 1,000-foot plan of what's happening in the Cosmere, and he's capable of like keeping each story contained enough to its current issues that it's trying to solve, and then on top of that moving the plot towards the actual climax or the actual like conflict that's going to happen, the bigger
yeah.
conflict. So yeah.
Yeah, and even when I read the first book, like, yeah, I knew it was a series going into it, but this
Mhm.
book, I always knew there was going to be more to this story.
Mhm.
Like, it's not, it always felt right that there was more to it. It wasn't, I've had plenty of these books. I'm like, I kind of wish this was just the one book. Or, if they did continue it, it was a different story that happened to be related to this one, not a continuation with this person, that sort of
Mhm.
thing. And this one was just like, I need more from this character in this world because there has been too much that I need to know that I don't know about. And it needs to be explored, and I want it to be with this person because you created a character that I like
Right.
or love. You know, and I think that was great on this. And why don't we go ahead though, and on that note, if we haven't already done it, start getting into our final thoughts on
Yeah,
this.
I was gonna suggest the same. So, final thoughts for me. Um, I adored the book. It was a really good book. I would highly recommend it. Um, it is a little on the mature side, but it is a solid read, and you should go pick it up.
Oh, wow, you're short and sweet. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So, my final thoughts on this. It holds up. It's it was still a fun read the second time through. Like it is definitely for people who are looking to see whether or not they want to keep on the lighter side of fantasy or if they're trying to dive into some of the deeper stuff. This is a good kind of transition book in between the two. You know, it's not Harry Potter, which is pretty light reading, and it's not Stormlight Archives, which I would argue is on the far other end of the spectrum where it's a deep dive. You know, this kind of gives you a good middle of the road, good magic system, good characters, and good story, and an overall great book in my opinion. And I would recommend it to anybody who is looking for a good fantasy read, even if they're not
Yeah.
into some of the deeper stuff.
Yep.
Whether or not you continue with Brandon Sanderson, it's up to you, but I would recommend this to anybody who likes fantasy at all.
Yeah. It's got a little bit of everything as far as like what the the checkbox for a
Yeah.
like standard fantasy reader, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
this one is definitely in my list of favorites, and I would put on like an S tier level of like books. You know,
ooh, nice.
for me personally. All right.
Excellent. Well, with that, why don't we get into the end game here?
All right. So I think our vote is in.
Yep.
Our next read is going to be October 22nd, Zombie Fallout by Mark Tufo. I don't know how to.
I think you got it. Tufo.
Tufo. And then November 5th, as a part of our it's technically November, but like still that's the weekend after Halloween, so Spooktober uh, is going to be Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. I've heard great things about that series, so we'll see how pans out. Coming up, we are kind of getting into our fireside books, so show. Why don't you bring your comfort books, like the book you love to read, uh, when there's nothing to do outside because it's rain. It's not the fun summer rain. So your rainy fall days book. Let's bring that
Yeah.
on as your next one. And
Something that you like to curl up with on a cold day,
mhm.
and a cup of coffee or a cup of hot
Right.
chocolate or something.
And then after that, I think our next theme is going to be what book would you gift to someone you love?
Ooh,
What book
yeah.
would you
A
what book
Secret
would you
Santa
give
book.
Secret Santa book? What book
Yeah.
would you gift to somebody?
Yeah, that's a good one. I like it. I like it.
All right. So
Okay.
yeah, because holy crap, we're coming into the last third of the year. Huh.
Ooh, yeah. It went fast. It went super fast. Hopefully, just like these plugs. So, we're from DM's Table. If you didn't know already, we are kind of a nerdy conglomerate of different things. We do Twitch streams. We have a D&D podcast. Um, yeah, we love to do nerdy stuff, and we hope you do too, and you want to interact with us and kind of join in the experience. You can experience a lot of that stuff over at DM's Table at dmstable.com. Uh, you can go there for more information on like the books that are coming up, or the books that we've read in the past, or there's blogs and stuff like that over there. Go check it out. It's really cool. Um, Also, go check out our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is kind of where our VODs go after the fact, and we do some cool stuff over there as well. So check that out. If you enjoyed the show and want to support uh, DM's Table as a whole, go check out patreon.com/DM's Table. Over there, joining at a $2 minimum is going to kind of help keep the lights on. It is through our patrons that we're able to keep the podcast hosted, our website up, and keep doing these things. Um, we're not a very big stream. We're not a very big thing, and so your guys' support is much appreciated. You can also check us out on our social medias at the DM's Table for Facebook and for Twitter at DM's Table. Hit us up on those social medias for our Discord if you want to join in and talk live with fellow nerds. We got all sorts of cool things that we talk about over there, like our 3D printing space. We talk about books. We talk about Lord of the Rings. You know, all sorts of fun stuff. So yeah, go check us out. Uh, or hit us up for our Discord links. Also, don't forget to check out the Etsy page, dmstable.com/Etsy. You might find something that you would love for future gifts. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for having me back, everybody. I missed all three of you.
Yes.
Hopefully, and like Alan said, it hit. It really is great that we do have any support at all, and we'd love to have more. But for now, like, just know that we appreciate every single one of you that shows up, whether you're a patron or not. But
Hmm.
always happy to have whatever support anybody can give. So even if you can't give the $2, spread the word.
Yeah. Bring
Let people
friends.
know. Yeah.
Join in with friends that's honestly,
or
if the money's not right for you or what have you, that's totally fine. Bring friends. Uh,
or bring or
yeah.
bring enemies. Break bread.
That's right.
We'll sort out your shit over books.
That's right. That's right. Or maybe you'll find common ground.
Yeah, exactly. We love bringing people together. So,
Yes. Yes.
but with that, thank you everybody. And unless you got anything, Adam, I think we will see you.
Whoa.
Oh,
Ow. Ow.
oh, it's habit. It's a
Ow.
spoiled habit after 3 months, Alan. I am sorry.
Uh,
Uh,
uh.
I I literally read. That's what I get for using. We have notes that help us with this stuff, and it literally has our names like one after another, so we hit everything. And I was reading Adam's. Thank you, Alan, for hosting with me
You're
and for
welcome.
covering for me for those 3 months while I was gone.
Uh.
Which was totally your fault. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you, Alan.
Uh.
Thank you, everybody. And unless, Alan, you have anything else, yes or no,
Nope.
then we will, then we will see you next book, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
See ya.